Hey everybody, welcome into Under the Helmet. I'm your host Josh Van Dusen, and today we have with us Commander Allie Taylor with Bradley County EMS. Allie, welcome in. We're so happy to have you today.
Yeah, it's nice
Uh,
to meet you
Allie,
guys.
Allie, can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and just kind of tell us a little introduction about you?
Yeah, my name's Allie. I've been a commander for about 4 years at Bradley County for the ambulance service. I've worked there for about 20. Um, Really, I'm just more of like a shift supervisor. Some commanders are different ranking and all that, depending on what department you're at. But I really just run the shift. I take care of about 14 to 16 people on my shift currently. Um, just making sure that everyone stays afloat is the biggest the biggest job title that I have right now. I'm also one
Yeah,
of the main people with the peer support with mental health at our service. So we've got a big group
that's great.
that helps um, just deal with all of the mental health. We've really taken pride in trying to grow that aspect of the service. So
Yeah,
it's been a difficult journey, but very rewarding nonetheless.
right. How big is Bradley County EMS? How many employees do you think you guys have?
We probably have about 110 full-time employees, and then
Okay,
anywhere maybe 60 to 70 part-time, depending on the month. Some of them kind of come and
right,
go. Yeah,
right. Understand. So in the peer support aspect of it, you've got quite a bit under your belt that you handle with them.
yeah, it's that has definitely been a journey. We've tried to decide to help get an actual peer support team to kind of formalize it, make it a little bit more kind of standard operating guides for
Yeah,
um, just so it's more formatted so that not as many people fall through the cracks. So
right.
there's several of us. We've probably got about 10 or 11 peer support people on our panel for Bradley County EMS.
Great, great.
Yeah.
So, Allie, tell me what led you to your involvement with the peer support. Was there some type of personal journey there, or what led to your desire to be involved in peer support?
So this is kind of a long one, so you're gonna have to bear with me through it all.
Yeah.
The reason that I got in EMS was my brother passed away whenever I was 15, and
Hmm.
it it could have probably been dealt with a little bit better. So I've seen the mental health side of things from a personal aspect since I was very little. My
Hmm.
family didn't really register that the correct way, and it led to a lot of negative, not really feedback, but just a negative aspect of my life.
Right.
So whenever I got into EMS, it was provoked by that wreck to try to do better and be better.
Hmm.
Some of the EMTs on the scene of that wreck didn't find um, my brother's girlfriend at the time, and all three of them died in the wreck. There was him, her, and another person in another vehicle, and I felt like if maybe I could make that better, just with EMS. Getting on scene and triaging a little better and making sure that all people are accounted for that are on the scenes. Not that they necessarily did a
Hmm.
bad thing, because now that I've had 20 years in, I can see both sides of it and maybe why. But that kind
Right.
of stemmed the whole thing of why I got into
Hmm.
EMS. And then
Right.
I saw how it negatively affected my family and how we didn't deal with it correctly. And then I keep
Hmm.
seeing all of these very tragic calls that we've ran over, the last 20 years, and how EMTs don't deal with them correctly, probably about 90% of the time. Um,
Right.
so I really wanted to kind of do better with that. I'm not a very outspoken person, contrary to what some people may think. I get very nervous. Even this is very nerve-wracking for me, but I believe in it enough that I want it to succeed. So I'm gonna struggle through
Right.
this, and hopefully you can
I
figure
appreciate that.
something
I
out with
really do.
that. Um, but one of our old medical directors, we had been hit and miss with the mental health stuff for a
Hmm.
while at Bradley County, and we had a few people that were trying to pull the trigger on it, and I had a medical director come up to me um, and say, "Hey, we really need to get this going." And I
Mhm.
was a very new command staff at that time, and I thought, you know what, I can do this. As hard as this may be,
Right.
I can make this work. I'd already been kind of mingling with it in the beginning, and so I just
Mhm.
took it and ran with it. It's not perfect by any means, but I do try, and I feel like that it's gotten tremendous support, um, especially by, the directors of the service. It's definitely helped just kind of grow and build that to what we are now. And again, there's still room for growth with everything that we have as far as
Right.
our peer support team and just the mental health aspect of everything. But at least it's kind of taken off and getting there. It's always going to be a work in progress. So all that
Absolutely.
to say, sorry, that was very long-winded,
Yeah.
but
No, no, not at all. Not at all. Because that's kind of the point. We want to kind of take an in-depth look at things. And I think that maybe our viewers, I would hope that they would appreciate how the groundwork is laid for these things, people's personal stories, and how peer support plays a role in their life is even coming from your point of view where you felt the need to be able to provide a resource to these employees. Um, it, Allie, you know a lot of my personal story, and um, mental health has played a huge role in my career. I struggled for quite some time. I had a lot of um, compiled traumas over the years, and then I had an accident, a carbon monoxide poisoning, that just kind of tipped me over the edge, and I kind of lost control and spiraled downward for a couple of years. And it was a little while after that that I finally said, "Hey, something's wrong. I've got to figure out what's going on and why." And then some things started to resurface, and it. I had a medical doctor that pushed me towards some mental health uh, support and some mental health treatment, and it made a tremendous effect on me. Um, Coming up through the years, I started in this business when I was a kid, and we didn't you just had the tough guy mentality back then, and you didn't there was no such thing as peer support, and you were expected just to bear the weight of this stuff, and it's just not humanly possible, and we see the effects of it every day in our business. And so I think it's an extremely invalued um, thing that we're doing with the peer support. And so I commend you, Allie. I thank you for deciding to take on that burden. I know it's a huge burden, along with your normal commander duties. This is a huge undertaking for you, and we thank you for that.
well, thankfully I've had a
Allie,
lot of
just
good people to help too. So it's not just me by any
right,
means. We've got a lot of
yeah,
different people, so it makes it easier whenever it's spread out.
right. Speaking of the tough guy mentality, describe what your service was like before the peer support formed there. What just kind of give me just a little bit of background on how things were handled, or what what happened during maybe a critical incident, or if you saw an employee that you thought may be suffering from some of these effects. Just kind of tell us what it was like before peer support.
So all of the flags were there. The more research I did on this, the more I could see it. It was kind of like if you're looking at a red car, you see red cars everywhere. People were calling into work because they
Yeah,
couldn't handle another call. They were
yeah,
screaming and yelling at each other because they've had a bad day. Um,
right,
I recently went to a conference and they did a little, it was like a little quiz, and it was how many bad traumas have you seen? And I thought it was kind of a joke because I answered, I was like, are you really asking me this? Because I've seen every one of them multiple times. Like, this is not a yes and no. And
right.
I really took for granted just some of the other people in the room. I was like, wow, you've not seen all of these? Because some of them only had like 1 or 2 points, and mine was like 35 plus. And I
Right.
realized how much trauma Bradley County has seen a lot of trauma. Everybody thinks that we're a small town department compared to some of the other people, but we see a lot of trauma on a daily basis, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And half the time, it doesn't even register that we've seen it because we've become so
Hmm.
immune to it.
Right.
And that's where I think the breakdown is that this isn't normal. You know, any reaction that you have to that is a normal reaction because we're dealing with a lot of very abnormal scenarios, situations. The average person doesn't see this every day.
Right.
But it definitely was taking its toll, I think, and it still takes its toll today because the stigma is still there. It's gotten way
Yeah.
better. Before, you didn't talk
Hmm.
about it. It was the tough boy mentality. Um,
Hmm.
you were a sissy. I say that in quotations because you
Right.
came and you cried on scene, or I got told that was
Hmm.
why women weren't in EMS is because they cried too much. And it's
Right.
just like, wow, what is that? Like that,
Yeah.
that's men can cry too. It's just letting go
Hmm.
of all of those emotions can be very liberating nonetheless. But it was
Yeah.
it was very a lot of people were very self-destructive. Now we try to
Hmm.
teach way better coping mechanisms. The alcohol rate. I don't know what it was specifically at our service as far as numbers, but I do feel like it's probably improved since then. Just people
Hmm.
learning to deal with it. Um, they didn't want to take medicine. Like Prozac was you just didn't take it. You didn't announce that you took it. Not that we're all
Right.
on medicine and all that, but for the people that need it, it helps them. And
Hmm.
that was even I'll go ahead and say it. That was a game changer for me, because I was very much against medicine at the beginning. But
Right.
not that I deal with stress terribly. Like I had positive coping mechanisms, but I didn't realize what it was physically doing to my body. My cortisol
Yeah.
levels were through the roof. I'm getting a little older, unfortunately. Um, so I'm not that 20-year-old that can spring back anymore, and it wa- it
Hmm.
was it was really affecting just my body physically as much as mentally. Um,
Hmm.
so when I did finally get on medication to help with some of that, I realized, you know, my kids don't need a snappy mama when they come home. Just the little things like that. That
Right.
just this weekend, my kid was like, "Mama, are you okay?" And it's because I've missed my medicine. He notices it
Hmm.
more than I do. He's very self-aware, and it's made me more self-aware. And I know that that may be something kind of controversial with
Yeah.
some people as far as all of that, but you just find what works for you to try to adapt with what you've got. Um,
Absolutely.
I think that the service overall has gotten a lot better, as far as the mental health. Like I've had people come up to me, "Hey, Allie, I went and saw we have a therapy place that we work with, and that is one of the biggest things that has really driven some of our mental health stuff is that we do offer free therapy sessions. It's not a IEP or anything like that. It's
Right.
unlimited therapy sessions for EMS, fire, and PD. And they can go and talk to a licensed therapist. And now I can walk through the halls and people be like, "Hey, I saw, whoever." And it's not so secretive and
Yeah.
like you're in trouble, or you're not doing the right thing, or it's very well talked about these days. You can sit down at a table and say, "Hey guys, how are you really feeling today?" And it's not awkward because people are really open up to you and tell you how they're really feeling versus just trying to suck it up and be quiet with however they're dealing with it. Again,
Yeah.
it's still not
And
perfect, but it's better.
right. And I don't think it'll ever be perfect, Allie,
Right.
because I don't think that we can ever come up with a perfect formulation. One of the things that we talked about in our last episode with Pete was that there is no template for this stuff, and everybody deals with this stuff differently, and everybody has a different release. So you just kind of have to hit it with a broad spray effect and hope that you can create positive coping mechanisms for your employees. Um, one thing that that I've noticed is that each time you have a different coping mechanism, you can stick that in your file and say, hey, this may work for somebody else. It may not work for 30 other people, but it might work for one. And uh, one of the biggest things that drive me to even do this podcast is that if I can just make a difference in one person, if we
Right.
get one person that that it makes a difference in and helps them to process and deal with this stuff in a positive manner, this is all worth it to me. I could do 1,000 episodes, and if just one person, gets something from it, then I'm blessed, and I feel like I've made a difference in it. So, although that we may never solve the problem, because let's face it, every day the traumas get worse. I
Right.
mean, they come up with some kind of new way to really mess things up, and we're there to witness it. But so that I feel like we may not ever get a full grasp on it, but hopefully we'll get a good tight one.
Our
Um,
recent director said you just have to be 1% better than yesterday. And that's
that's
really
I
kind of
love
stuck.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to
Yep.
be
That's
perfect.
right.
You just got to keep trying to improve. So,
Yeah. I really like that mentality. That's great.
yeah.
So what process did you use, Allie, in starting? Because I know that you had a big hand in forming the peer support group. What process did you do? What did you look at other services? Did you kind of create a plan to just kind of tell us a little bit about what process you took in forming the peer support group for Bradley County?
Yeah. So that was definitely a process. Sadly, there wasn't a ton of people that had peer support. Um,
Right.
Ironically, some of the bigger ones that I looked at was Pete. His team with the fire department and um, Jennifer Samples with the PD at the time.
Hmm.
They had already kind of figured out some of the things with that, and I just kind of took it from there. A lot of our people
Hmm.
they want to be trained on everything, and
Right.
even myself, I was one of those that I don't know how to do this. I can't do this. I'm not smart enough to do this. What if I mess something up? So we collectively as a service, some of the upper command staff kind of we kind of talked about it. I got with Director Lewis and said, "Hey, this is something that this sounds good. How can we get it working?" I Our previous director had sent me to uh, it's a mental health first aider. It's a very basic, um, just mental health class. It's you can deal
Right.
with the um, the public with it. It's just anybody that's really kind of having suicidal ideations and how to deal with it. It's like I said, it's very basic. They make different versions of it or whatever. But I went to that class and I became an instructor for that. And I thought, even if I can just give these people the basic knowledge that they have to have, I can give them a certificate and it'll make them feel better because everybody can really be a mental health peer support person if you have the
Hmm.
empathy to do it. You're not
Right.
a licensed therapist. You're just giving the best advice you know how, and one of the biggest things that you can do is care. Somebody to care
Right.
enough to say, "Hey, look, you look like you're struggling. Can I talk to you? Can I get you some help?" That's the
Hmm.
biggest key factor that I sat through and I read all this stuff and I'm like, this is stuff I already know. This is not new things, but just giving them that little piece of paper that says, "Hey, you can do that." And you're equipped to do this. Like we deal with suicidal people all the time in our jobs. You don't talk rude to them. You give them the respect. You let them be heard. You listen, actively listen. All of these simple things that they already know how to do. So I wasn't teaching them really anything other than giving them a certificate and giving them CUs. And
Yeah.
so we set them through the program. It was a couple-hour program, just so that they could feel, if they have any questions, of course, they can reach out to anybody on the peer support team. One of the biggest things that I ask let me back up. So there was certain people that I knew that I was going to ask to see if I could get them on the peer support team. I didn't want them to feel obligated to do this. I wanted them to come to me because
Hmm.
I don't want somebody to feel like this is just a job. I want them to want
Right.
to do it. And so I sent a message out to the entire service, tell them exactly what I was doing and if they were interested in doing it, to send me a text or an email. And I
Hmm.
had a handful of people that, I'm sorry, I hope the wind isn't bothering anything.
That's fine. Yeah.
I had a handful of people that hit me that day, like within minutes of, hey, I want to help. And then I had
Right.
people that really wanted to think about it before, and I am perfectly okay with that because I would rather you think about it before you approach me with it. So we had
Right.
probably 10 to 15 people that reached out, and so that
Hmm.
kind of set my um, I guess my starting point for it. I sat down
Right.
with all of them and I said, look, for peer support to be successful, you're going to have to keep your mouth shut. This is not a gossip
Hmm.
train. If people don't trust you to tell you their concerns, how they're feeling, they're not going to talk to you. And so
Right.
that was one of my biggest things is you've got to just keep your mouth shut and not gossip with these. Um,
Hmm.
Give them that respect, if nothing else, even if you don't agree, because there are some instances that people are just like, I'm not fit to talk to some of these people, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay. We'll find you somebody that does fit what you need. Because some people are they just vibe better for the younger generations. Um,
Right.
but so we set through the class. We still talk. If they have questions, I ask that they follow up with another person on the peer support or me or, some of the others that have been in it a little bit longer. We have different peer supports with the city and the county, and they can talk to them if they have questions and just so it stays in house and it's not floating through the service. It's
Hmm.
all ranks. So, like I'm a commander, some people don't want to talk to me because I am a commander and
Right.
they would much rather and feel more comfortable talking to somebody that just come in, that is an EMT or, they might want to talk to the police department. They might want to talk to the fire department. They have that option. And if we can't find them a good fit in our department, then we'll gladly go across. We've all kind of talked and, made that very aware that you may have some people reaching out to you from different departments.
Right.
Um, just so it's a broader spectrum and more people that can kind of fit the mold a
Right.
little bit better.
Yeah. And while you were talking a minute ago, it brought to me the thought that we get out here and we deal with people that are having suicidal ideations or suicidal tendencies and or some real mental health crisis and in somewhat we're trained to deal with that and we seem to handle it pretty well in the emergent moment, um, but we've never really had to focus on our own and
Right,
looking at it from a point of view like what happens to us when we have to treat one of our own in a medical or
hmm
a traumatic emergency. It's difficult for us,
right,
because it is a brother or a sister that we're so this is even more difficult because now if we see some of these negative side effects of this compiled trauma and then we have to approach a
right,
brother or sister to say, look, I'm seeing some negative side effects. That's very difficult for
yeah,
us. But I feel like the outcome of it outweighs that initial fear, I guess, of approaching them because sometimes it's a little bit better coming from a brother or sister. It would
yeah,
be, you're coming from a place of love when you're speaking to him and because of genuine concern, and I think it opens that door for that rapport that you need um, for somebody to reveal some of this very private stuff.
yeah,
So that's why I think peer support is and can be so effective because there's already a pre-established relationship, a pre-established trust. This is one of ours. and we can approach it from a point of love. So that
For
was
sure.
a thought that came to me. That we deal with these people and we don't think another thought about it. There are our patients out there, but when it comes to one of our own, I think that's maybe why it has been such a slow process into saying, "Hey, it's okay to approach them. It's okay to say something," because I mean, Allie, you've been in this business for 20 years. You've seen a lot of coworkers self-destruct from this stuff,
Yeah,
and they'll go down the alcohol path. They'll go down the we talked with a therapist on here, and like the hypersexuality, so the infidelity in marriages, the broken marriages that come from this, is can all be pointed back to some of these compiled traumas that these people are dealing with, and this is just how this stuff is coming out
for
is
sure.
through alcoholism, and so I think it's very important that these peer support groups are phenomenal, and I think it'll cause a huge change in our industry.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think
and
that
then you talk,
the more people that the more eyes we have, the quicker we can see these patterns. And early
yes,
recognition is key before it spirals downhill. And, that infidelity
absolutely,
kicks in and, versus having a bad day versus a bad week versus a bad month and years. And,
yeah.
the quicker that we can see it, the better.
Yeah. And now instead, I mean, like 20 years ago, we put blinders on because we would act
Yeah.
like we didn't see this stuff. We
Right.
would act like we didn't see our fellow coworker dealing with this stuff, and we would just ignore it. Now it's become much more acceptable, and now people are actually kind of on the lookout for this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's okay to approach that employee and say, "Hey, you okay, man? You okay?" Or it's okay to go to your supervisor and say, "Hey, look, I've seen some real self-destructive
Mhm.
traits coming out of this person, and I'm concerned about them." It's okay to do that because the the outcome, if you don't, can be catastrophic.
Right.
And we've seen that, Allie. I know you've seen that in your personal life, in your
Yeah.
personal experiences in your field, that the catastrophic effects of that, of just turning a blind eye to it, or ignoring it. Not that that happened in that particular case, but you saw some very catastrophic outcomes of mental health in the first responder world.
For
So
sure.
it's okay to speak up, and you should feel a moral responsibility to speak up. Um,
And
so
that's what we're
just
trying to get the culture to see is that it is
yes,
okay. It's not something that has
hmm
to be hidden. It, you're not going to get in trouble. Now, I would strongly suggest approaching it in a very, sensitive manner just because
yeah,
I mean, somebody that doesn't get along, I wouldn't tell that person to go talk to the other person. You need to have a
right,
little bit of common sense with it all too. But
yeah,
and if you're not the right fit, like there's several people that I'm not the right fit for, and I know that.
yeah,
But I can also use that peer support team to find somebody that is the right fit to
right,
talk to that person, so that the end, if I see
right,
something, the end game is still the same. It just might not be me physically doing
yeah.
it.
Oh, absolutely, and that's another reason why I brought up, going to your supervisor or whatever, because then they can kind of gauge the situation and provide, get support, and this as a commander, because you've already said that, that sometimes there's a distrust between subordinates and supervisors,
Yeah,
in some aspects. So, but if you have knowledge of it, Allie, then you can find the resources and maybe find somebody, say, "Hey, this is somebody that I know that person connects with. Maybe I can send
right.
them to check up on them,"
For sure.
and just kind of hit it from a different angle. So it's okay to go say something, uh, and get that person at least approached. Start looking at getting them some of the resources that they need. I think it's very, very important.
Yeah.
And I like the stigmatism or I like the wearing away of the stigmatism
Mhm.
that we're getting to. um, I talked to Zach Jaggers, and he said, he brought up a extremely interesting point that I guess I knew but never thought about. But these people might deal with a trauma or two in their lifetime, a witnessing a a car accident, or
Mhm.
witnessing some type of major trauma or something like that. They might see one or two of those in their lifetime, and like Zach said, we may see four before lunch.
Right.
You know, and we can't be, just as we would say, I see some huge effects. Okay, Allie, you talked about your family and the effects after your brother's accident, and how that, that's one trauma that your family had to deal with, and you noticed, but nobody criticized for it not being handled correctly, because it's
Right.
expected. Hey, they lost, a family
Mhm.
member in this tragic wreck, and so it's kind of expected. But the general public expects first responders to let this stuff roll off their back and go on to
Yeah.
the next one, and it doesn't work that way. We're
We're still
human.
human.
We put on our socks one at a time, just like everybody else. And so our brain is no different than anybody else's out here, and we have to still process these things just in huge volumes.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier about the Bradley County's calls and things like that. When I was in that area, I know that it was just common knowledge that people don't just wreck in Bradley County. They don't just have fender benders in Bradley County. If they wreck, it's bad,
Right.
and there has been some like historic,
Yes.
traumatic events that have happened in Bradley County. It's amazing, for the population in the area and the culture that's there, the amount of just critical incidences that have happened in Bradley County. It's astounding. So my heart goes out to the first responders in that area, because they deal with such a large scale of traumatic events. That
Yeah.
if you think, if they run, and I don't know your numbers, but if they run 500 calls a month, Bradley County has a good chance of 300 of them being bad.
Right.
And so, on a scale, looking at, New York City or something like that, you may not run near the call volume as that, but your scale of major incidences, is way up there in that part of Tennessee, and it's
And
crazy.
sadly, we just look at it like it's a normal day. That's the sad
Yep.
part of it all is that,
Yeah.
when I
Yep.
was taking that test, I was like, why are you asking it? Like, is this triggering me? Like, what's your,
Yeah.
and then once I realized what he was saying, I was like, oh, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
And then I thought, wow, that's
Right.
kind of stupid, Allie. I guess it's not normal to see that much stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's the world you've lived in for 20
yeah,
years,
that's all I
you
know. I
know.
don't know any different. So
Right. Yeah. Um, let's talk a little bit about the changes you've seen in your service since
yeah.
the forming of peer support. Tell me about some of the positive effects you've seen that's happened because of the peer support forming in your agency.
Um, I think people's mental health definitely, just our culture has gotten better.
Hmm.
Our morale has gotten better. A lot of that, like Bradley was struggling there for a little while. Our morale was very low, and
Hmm.
I feel like currently our morale is up. Um, People want to come into work overall. I mean, there's always going to be
Yeah.
those days. Um, but it's just more of a better place to work. And that doesn't just include EMS. I've had firefighters come up to me and they're not scared to say, "Hey, I went to therapy." In the middle of a
Right.
call, they're like, "Hey, Allie, I just wanted to say thank you. I went and saw,
Hmm.
whoever, and I'm feeling a little bit better now. I appreciate that." In the middle of a call. Like,
Right.
if they're that open to talk to me when there's others around, when there's a patient
Hmm.
sitting on the stretcher, that's made a positive impact on their life. And I've had
Absolutely.
that numerous times. That's not once or twice, a handful of times. That's over and over again. I'm hearing these people talk about how better, their marriages are and
Yeah.
their ability to do whatever it is other than identifying as EMS, you know, PD, fire, whatever you want to
Right.
insert your first responder role. They are identifying themselves as other people than just that first responder. And that's a huge, I mean, whether people realize that or not, that is a huge impact because we are people. And I'm a mother, I'm a
Yeah.
Christian, I am a wife, I'm all these other things. And for so long, I only identified as a first responder. And that could be taken away at any point. You know, you're one call away
Right.
from an injury that you're no longer a first responder.
Yeah.
And and that could shut your life down completely, or that could give you room to do something else. And I say all of that to say that people are realizing this, and it's because they're getting the help. You know, they're finding coping mechanisms. They're finding out that their life has more value than just being a first responder, and they can do hard things and they can get through each day and they can become better as a whole, not just as a first responder. So
Right. Yep.
I do think that it's gotten way better. I think we offer better resources for them to be able, you know, to equip these people with the stuff that they do see so that they don't
Great.
take it home. And that's still improving. There's still
Right.
some new things coming for Bradley County, and I can't wait to see, you know, how it progresses and all of the things. And I hope that more people get interested in it. And I'm just a blimp on a screen for all the people that are coming in and taking it over. And 'cause it's not about me, it's about making sure that the people, you know, get taken care of. And I don't care who does it. If somebody would
Right.
love to join in, I'm all about all the help and all the things because you can never have enough people caring about our first responders. So,
Yeah. That no doubt. I completely agree with you. Allie, tell me how being involved in the peer support has affected you personally, because I know you're married to a first responder or retired first responder.
yeah,
Um, so not only do you've got you know your personal job that you work as a commander in an EMS service, you've got a spouse that is in emergency services,
yeah.
and then on top of that you've got your personal stressors of whatever happens in your personal life. um, but tell me how this has affected your personal life in the way that maybe that you deal with your stress and your traumas and the things that come to you.
So like I said earlier, I'm going to fall back to my kid before fall back to my husband. He is very
Yeah.
self-aware, and I talk to my
Hmm.
family about just being open. Now, I don't give them the full version of it sometimes. My
Right.
husband probably gets a little bit more of that just because he knows. But
Yeah.
my children are small, and I can give them little
Hmm.
snippets, and they know Mom's not having a good day. Let me do something. You know, my youngest one will bring me dandelions, you know, just little things like that to kind of help. But I know that
Yeah.
sometimes I need to come home and I need to reset. I've learned that on the bad days, it's okay to have a bad day. I can
Hmm.
I can use my positive coping mechanisms, come home, not talk to anybody for a few minutes, um, go take a shower, you know, get the uniform off. One of the first things that I do when I get home is take the uniform off
Yeah.
because the longer I keep this uniform on, I'm still in work mode. So, and plus, you know, the germs and stuff. But
Right.
I just, I don't want that around anything. But just
Right.
it's just a different mentality. It's a different hat. I can take that hat off, set it to the side
Hmm.
as much as I possibly can. Now I get, you know, I am a supervisor, so I get phone calls a lot of the day, even if I work nights.
Hmm.
Um, but I've learned to balance myself with that. As a new
Great.
commander, I didn't do that well, and it was a struggle for me. Um,
Right.
but just learning the different coping mechanisms, you know, what I'm teaching everybody else, I have to say, okay, Allie, you need to take some of your own advice. Turn your phone off. You know,
Hmm.
I just with my husband, bless his soul, he is a very good man. He puts up with a lot of my irritability and my frustrations, and but he's also the one that gives me very sound advice. He helps. He can listen to me, and he'll be like, "Do you want an answer to this problem, or do you want me to just listen?" That's one of the biggest things. Communication is key, and I would say that with
Oh yeah.
any person, whether it's any kind of
Hmm.
relationship you have. But it's definitely affected my personal life, just in all aspects. You know, how I deal with people at church, whether it's, trying to help them, just listening to my own advice sometimes, and then
Right.
listening to the advice that other peer support gives me, because sometimes their answers are way better than anything I could think of. Um,
Yeah.
just getting sound advice from somebody that I know has my best intentions at heart and is willing to actually, like my husband, bless his heart, he will actually tell me stuff I don't like. Allie, why are you
Hmm.
acting like this? And I get not that's not for everybody, because I am a very strong-willed woman, and sometimes he gets his head bit off. But he approaches it in a very good manner that we can communicate, and I can realize, hey, I need a break, or you know what's affecting this, what's causing you to act like this. Just
Hmm.
figuring out the why behind some of this stuff is a
Right.
huge key for me. Um, that's just how I deal with stress. Now, physically, I think it's gotten a lot better. My sleep is very non-existent these days, most of the time.
Right.
Um, so prioritizing my sleep, because I know that that's a factor for me. Um,
Yeah.
and just owning what I have issues with. That's one of the biggest things
Hmm.
anybody can do, is owning their mistakes and owning their um, inefficiencies. I'm not really sure the word I'm looking for there, but um, I don't want to say they're faults, because it's not really a fault. It's just something
Yeah.
that you're not as good with dealing with. Um,
Hmm.
their shortcomings, I
Weaknesses,
guess.
maybe.
Yeah, that's maybe a better word. I don't want to make it sound like it's derogatory. Um, but
Yeah.
just learning to deal with that on a daily basis. And again, sometimes I get it right, and most times I get it wrong. Um,
Yeah.
but just the fact that we keep trying, every day,
Right.
as a commander, as a mom, as a wife, as a peer person at a church, whatever you want to insert that as your
Hmm.
go-to, your relationships with friends, just knowing that we're all human and we all can try to be better.
You
So,
think it's made a difference in your marriage?
oh, 100%.
That's good.
Brett and I went through a really, really rough patch, and
Hmm.
I won't go into all the details of that, but
Right.
we are stronger than ever now. And a lot of that has to do with God. One of the ways that I personally deal with things is I take it to God. I give him all the glory for everything that I've been able to do, because he's empowered me to do all of that. And
Right.
and I think that putting him first in our marriage, just in my life in general, has
Hmm.
created so many blessings, and Brett being one of those biggest blessings. We were headed for divorce, and now I
Yeah.
can say that we could probably get through anything. Um,
That's
we
great.
we communicate. We are very much thriving in this season of life that we're in. So, and
Good.
that's got a lot of different factors. So,
I bring this up in every podcast, and people are probably going to get tired of hearing about it. But I've got a friend of mine that is a therapist and former NYPD officer. She was on the second episode of the podcast, but she always, when her and I first met and we're discussing some of this stuff, she uses an analogy like a that we're almost kind of like minions. We have a singular uh, lens that we look through. And as we collect these traumas at work, it's like throwing mud on them, or scratching the glass, or cracking it, or throwing some dirt up there, or spitting on it or whatever. But as those traumas collect, your field of vision gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and your outlook on life. And then if you have a spouse and there's trouble, there's stress at home or everything, their vision becomes smaller and smaller. So of course yours gets smaller even more because of the stress at home. So now you started with a lens this big, now you're looking through a hole this big,
right?
and your spouse is looking through a hole this big. It's hard to get those to line up where you can see each other clearly, and get a good clear picture on each other.
Yeah,
And we have to stop and we have to clean that glass and we have to try to get a little better look at life and a little better look at our spouse and so that we can see a good clear picture. And so for you, you found that God has become a tremendous glass cleaner
Oh
and
yes,
allowed you to see things a whole lot clearer, and so I encourage everyone to try to find something to clear that glass so that they can look at life through a whole lot clearer glass and a whole lot better vision. And I love that analogy. I'll probably share it every episode.
I
I
was
don't
fixing to
care.
say I'm probably going to use that. That was a very good
Yeah,
analogy.
yeah. That's from my friend Christine, and y'all go back and watch the second episode, and you'll get. She has a lot of great insight, and she's just an incredible person. But so, um, talk to me a little bit about I've noticed through social media and things like that you do a lot of like off-duty activities with your peer support group. um,
Yeah.
Talk to me about your intention behind that, what benefit that provides, and what your intent is with those off-duty activities. I mean, because I see things like y'all go bowling, you go out to eat, you do cookouts, things like that, with the peer support. Well, not just peer support, but all the employees, but it's kind of put together by peer support.
Yeah. Um, so sadly, I would like to say we've had one super recent, but we haven't, just because it's been busy. It
Yeah,
was getting to the point that I was super stressed out because I was trying to put on so many at the same time that I had to
right.
kind of take a break for just a little bit. But we've been talking about, it's getting that spring, summertime.
Yeah,
When the cookouts can start. And one of the biggest ones we had was a pool party, um, which that one we had a lot of people come, but it could have been a lot better. But I think a lot of people were nervous to see each other in a bathing suit. I get that,
right.
because it was the entire Bradley County. It
Yeah.
wasn't just like a specific department, but we started doing group events just to get. I mean, we all work alongside each other in the field.
Hmm.
And I felt like the only time we see each other is when we're on calls. And if we could get that when we weren't on calls, and you could get all these people from the different departments, the camaraderie would be better. Everybody likes a good game to get the who's going to win and who isn't going to win. Just to say that they've got bragging rights. The chili cook-off that
Right.
Pete did, bless him.
Hmm.
The chili cook-off is still a very good camaraderie between us all.
Yeah.
Um, can of dog food goes a long way. Um,
I
you have to ask Pete about that. But
will.
just little events like that, it doesn't have to be anything spectacular. Some of the days at the park, we had hot dogs, and we did little kind of like back when you were in elementary school and you did um, oh, what was that called? The day where you go out and the
Oh,
playground
field
and
day.
yeah, field day. Thank you.
Field
Um,
day.
those little activities where you run with an egg on a spoon and see who can run the fastest,
Right.
and all just the little things. One, it's getting some kind of physical activity. Two, it's getting us outside. Three, it's bringing us around. I mean, the pros to this are endless. It's
Right.
getting us all together. It's letting us know each other personally, not just as the identifier as a first responder. It's letting us have more sincere conversations, bringing out stuff
Hmm.
that probably wouldn't be brought out on a scene because we're there for whatever, that emergency is.
Hmm.
So it was just a way to get people together and get to know each other. Um, I think that they've all been decently successful, even if the weather was, you know, not permitting on a couple of them. But just getting more people out and doing things. Sometimes we like to call ourselves hermits and not go out. I'm calling myself out. I like to stay at home and sit with my weenie dogs and not be around the public sometimes. And that's
Right.
okay. I know that there's a spot and a place for that, but it also
Hmm.
helps me to get out and be around people, to push myself to be around people. And
Hmm.
I've never left one of them thinking, man, that really stunk. Um, it's always, oh, I learned about this person, or that, this cop was really nice. I didn't know anything about them, or just some of the crazy antics that we do whenever we have free time on our hands, and goofing off and laughing. And laughing is one of the biggest things that I really try hard to incorporate with this, because we don't laugh enough. As first responders, we're always very
Right.
serious. We're expected to do all these things very hard and very quickly, and we've become really, really efficient at it. But sometimes I feel like
Hmm.
it takes our fun and our joy away, because we're always so worried about the next thing and dealing with the next thing. So just giving us time and space to hang out and have a good time,
Right.
it can go a long way with helping everybody's mental health. So I
Yeah.
think you might have sparked. I'm going to try to get another one together.
I think also that it creates a link um, between employees that may provide a little bit of comfortability when things do go sideways for them to
Yeah.
reach out. Um, I, I've said it time and time again. It would be a whole lot easier for me to reach out to my friend Allie than it would be for me to reach out to Commander Taylor.
Right.
So it provides that personal link and some comfortability and and bringing down some of those walls, I think, is and that's extremely important. That camaraderie, just like you said,
Mhm.
and the fact that you're doing it interagency is phenomenal, because
Yeah.
then you get the different fire departments and the law enforcement in the area,
Mhm.
and it provides even a bigger network of availability for eyes out there and availability for somebody to reach out to. That's tremendous,
Sure.
and that's yeah, I like that. We
There's
have
been
a
walls
we're
between the different services for so long that it's breaking down
right,
those walls. One minor discrepancy that happened on scene can spiral into something huge, but it's little things
yeah,
like that breaks that, and you know takes it completely
yeah,
away.
yeah.
So,
That that's a great point, because there has been a ego issue
yeah,
between law enforcement and fire service and EMS
mhm,
there, not in just your county, but probably across the nation.
sure.
And it falls back to ego, who's controlling the scene or who's in charge, and there's all that, but that stuff all needs to be set aside when it comes to looking out for our brothers and sisters. I don't care what uniform you wear. If you don a uniform, you're my brother and sister. And so I feel a big responsibility to help look out for your welfare. And so the interagency activities and everything, I think, helps wear away at that little bit of ego. Other than the running an egg on a spoon, that part's okay. So, but so we're getting close to wrapping things up, but let me ask you, what are your future visions for the peer support um, uh, in your agency and interagency out there? With dealing with other agencies, where would you like to see this go? Let's say over the next 5 years, 10 years. What are some of your goals or your visions for the peer support?
I would love for just debriefs to be mandatory. Right now, that is not
Hmm.
one of the things that we offer 'em. We could offer a debrief
Hmm.
almost every single day, to be honest. We
Right.
do try to, take in the crew. Did it bother them? As check in on them, the repetitive check-ins, um, just to see if they're needed. But just to have those mandatory would be a huge success. And it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be something like, it could be a peer support, just, hey, let's sit down and talk about this. Something to kind of, so people don't fall through the cracks. That's one of the biggest things is,
Right.
um, it's so easily done, is people falling through the cracks. And I don't want,
Yeah.
one person is too many. Um,
Absolutely.
I've said that for a while now. One person is too many. So
Hmm.
just getting that, just making it bigger and better. I know everybody's like, oh, chase the bigger, better, but the bigger and the better of peer support, there is no con to that. Um, Getting more people involved, getting it more talked about, you know, making it not so, just getting that stigma to go away. Um,
Hmm.
that's my goal is the stigma. Um,
Yeah.
Say, hey, we do a lot of really, really hard things, and you've got the support and the resources to back you up, not only for today, but for tomorrow, um, to help kind of not really fix, but guide and steer the rest of your life so that this could be a career. Most people don't look at EMS as career jobs these days,
Right.
and I don't really know where that changed a lot because for me, whenever I first got in, like I'm 20 years, it is a career for me.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of people don't look at it like that, and I could see why whenever they get burnt out and they're so traumatized by everything that they see that they physically can't make it a career. And I think
Right.
that we need to support them in any means, whether it's the therapy, whether it's the EMDR, the micro neurofeedback. There's all these things. So the possibilities are endless with how
Hmm.
this could grow and get better. And I know that takes a lot of funding and grants and a lot of work. Um, but I think it can be done. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, just seeing it. I mean, emergencies are never going to go away. Somebody's always going to have a bad day. We're always going to be needed. That's one of those things. But helping our employees deal with it in the best way possible is my end game with that. Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so
Um, I wanted to share with you, Allie, the department that I'm at is a large department, and it was my first exposure to peer support. And but when I came on and went through the academy, when I came out of the academy and started into my FTO portion, um, I got a phone call that said the guy said, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm your peer support contact," and I started to learn about it then. And so they assign a peer support contact to each employee
that's
when they
awesome.
come on board. Our peer support people, they may have 8 or 10 people that they're responsible for. That doesn't mean that that you have to reach out only to that person, but you've got
Right.
somebody that keeps a check on them. And so that person is on my shift. I have quite a bit of contact with them throughout the day, seeing them at the hospitals and things like that.
Mhm.
So they see me, and then periodically, probably once every couple of months, he just calls and says, "Hey man, how you doing? How's everything going? Just checking in. Do you need anything? And then I was sharing with my brother too. It just this is a new concept to me, very new. This the peer support, and but I had a very difficult call the other day, and then we were really busy after that call. We had several calls, so when I got off shift and I was headed home, my phone rang and I looked down and it was one of my chiefs, and I thought, what in the world's he calling me? And he was
Right.
like, "Hey, heard you had a difficult call today. I'm just calling to check on you. Are you doing okay?" And that blew me away. I'd never
Yeah.
had that before. Never had, somebody that cared whether that call affected me or not. And so I love seeing that come away. That
Mhm.
stigmatism that you have to bear this stuff without effect because it's impossible.
Yeah.
It affects us in some way or another. You talked about being a snappy mom, and that was one of the biggest indicators to me that something was wrong. Is my children said, "Why are you so angry all the time, Dad?
Yeah.
Why are you so mad? Don't be quiet around Dad. You'll make him
Yeah.
mad." And I thought, my own kids have to tiptoe around me,
Right.
and that hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt bad. You know, I don't want to treat my kids like that. They are my life,
Mhm.
and for them to have that feeling that they can't even approach Dad, was heartbreaking for me. And I was like,
Yeah.
I've got to do something different.
Yeah.
I've got to change this. And then that's when I started to seek some help and get through it. And Christine played an instrumental role in that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well,
uh,
good for you.
but
That takes a lot, and
it's
you need to hear that. Good for you for taking that step.
Thank you. And I tell you, it's made a huge difference in my life. It's refocused me. It's cleaned my glass,
Yep.
and it's allowed me to move forward and to deal with this stuff in a positive manner. And I tell people all the time, this podcast is therapy for me.
Yeah.
Being able to talk about this stuff and release this stuff and to find creative ways and hear people's insights and their stories and things, it's therapy for me because it helps my soul in what we deal with. And because these tragedies that happen out there every day, we run straight headlong into them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't think about how they might affect us afterwards, or even think that they do affect us
Yeah.
afterwards, but they do. And
Well,
sometimes
that
other
was
people
like
see it before we do.
that was a meme I saw on Facebook the other day. It's like it's looking in the back of an ambulance that's destroyed, and it says, "Why is
Mhm.
this okay?" And it doesn't bother me, but going to the grocery store stresses me out and overstimulates me. And I thought,
Right.
"Ooh, that hits
Yeah.
harder than because
Yeah.
we know how to deal with one thing, but some of the other stuff, it's a work in
Very much
progress."
so. Yeah. Well, Allie, thank you so much for coming on today and providing
Yeah.
the insight that you have and letting us just get a peek into your day to day. We thank you so much for all the input that you've given us. It's tremendous. A lot of great information here. Um, so I just want to say thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on with us. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Stay safe out there, Allie. Is there anything you want to add before we jump off?
I just wanted to say thank you for asking. Again, this was a little bit difficult for me to do, but
You did
I'm
great.
glad that I did it. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I know you say this is therapy for you, but this is helping a lot of people, and not many people are willing to jump out there and do it themselves. So I look
Thank you.
forward to hearing many more podcasts. I don't do podcasts very well, but I've started
Yeah.
listening to yours and I've actually enjoyed them.
Oh, thank you.
So I
Thank
will
you so much.
continue listening. If I can help in any way, just let me know.
I appreciate it. Thank you again, Allie. You guys stay safe out there. If you need any support of any kind, reach out to your peer support in your own employment. If you don't have one, look up my email, shoot me an email. I've got resources that I'll be happy to put you in contact with. We need you well, we need you safe, and we need you functional, and your communities do too. You guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Josh Van Dusen, and this is Under the Helmet.